They say the heart is most vulnerable when it's finally at peace. That sometimes, the deadliest betrayals arrive not as screams, but as whispers in paradise. Before the blood, before the heartbreak, before the mugshots, there was just Cassandra. Cassandra Blake wasn't born into wealth, but she was born into fire, the kind that forges, not destroys. Her mother, a nurse who worked double shifts at Spanish Town Hospital, taught her resilience. Her father, a former soldier turned teacher, taught her discipline. But her strength, that was her own. As a child, Cassandra had a quiet intensity. While other girls played dress-up, she was lining her dolls up for spa treatments, rubbing their arms with lotion, pretending she could fix whatever ailed them. "You have healing hands," her grandmother used to say. "But one day, the person you'll need to heal most will be yourself." At 18, Cassandra won a scholarship to study holistic health in Kingston. She worked nights in a call center and weekends in a massage parlor. By 23, she had built a loyal clientele among Jamaica's wealthy elite, athletes, politicians, celebrities. Her magic wasn't just in her hands. It was in her energy. Calm, present, intentional. At 26, she launched Glow Haven, a mobile luxury spa brand offering wellness treatments in villas and resorts across Montego Bay. She rode the wave of Instagram wellness culture, but made it local, Caribbean, and real. No gimmicks, just peace. Her clients called her the Whisperer. Even when she barely spoke, they left feeling reborn. But her heart, that she guarded. Love wasn't something she chased. She saw too many of her friends become shadows of themselves, chasing men who were mirrors, reflecting charm, hiding chaos. Cassandra wanted more. Partner, a legacy, and most of all, peace. She journaled about it once. "I want someone who doesn't just see me. I want someone who can hold the weight of my silence and still feel full." Then he walked in. Julian Cross. The name alone sounded expensive. And Julian was expensive by taste, by company, by lifestyle. He drove a sleek white Audi, always freshly waxed. Wore Italian shoes even on the beach. Knew how to laugh just enough to charm, but not enough to look unserious. He was 33, a Montego Bay real estate broker with connections in Panama, Miami, and Dubai. He flipped multimillion-dollar villas like pancakes. Knew how to win trust, how to play both ends of a deal, and most dangerously, how to look you in the eye and make you forget your instincts. They met at a private beach party on New Year's Eve in Ocho Rios. Cassandra had been hired to offer 15-minute massages to VIP guests. She wasn't mingling, she was working, focused, barefoot. Her hands glided across a client's back, warm oil catching the moonlight, when a shadow stopped beside her. "You work magic with those hands," he said. She didn't even look up. "I only work on clients. So let me be your client. Of the heart." She almost rolled her eyes. But then she glanced up, and he smiled. That kind of smile, sharp but soft, like a lie wrapped in silk. They talked later that night. Walked the shoreline, shoes in hand. She told him about Glow Haven. He told her about flipping a villa to a British rapper who paid in cryptocurrency. They laughed about curried goat versus oxtail, about boarding school beatings, about how the ocean at night sounded like it was keeping secrets. He wasn't just charming, he was convincing, grounded, curious, a little broken, enough to make her want to fix him. They texted the next morning, then again, then daily. Julian didn't waste time. He sent fresh orchids to her studio, made dinner reservations at cliffside restaurants where you needed connections just to get a table. He flew her out on a helicopter tour of the Blue Mountains just to watch the sunrise and say, "This is what peace looks like. You, me, this sky." By February, Cassandra found herself daydreaming between appointments, smiling at her phone, wearing lipstick to work. By March, they were official. By April, he introduced her to his investors as my future. In May, he knelt at Treasure Beach during a candlelit dinner and held out a diamond ring. "Let's build this life together," he said. She said yes. The wedding was set for July. And when it arrived, it was the kind of affair that made wedding planners cry from joy and exhaustion. Hanover Sky Estate, 200 guests, horses, drones, a saxophonist playing She's Royal as they danced under fireworks. A trending hashtag, Blake and Cross 2024. Cassandra wore a custom hand-beaded gown from a Parisian designer she met on Instagram. Julian wore white linen and gold cufflinks with his initials. The food was fusion, ackee bruschetta, lobster sliders, curry goat with truffle mash. The wine? Imported. The vibe? Perfect. They looked like the cover of a magazine. Maybe they even believed they were. But paradise is funny. It always hides a price. 5 days after the wedding, they arrived at Rock House Hotel in Negril. The ocean welcomed them like a mother. Gentle waves, warm breeze, sun-drenched mornings. Their villa was carved into volcanic cliffs, windows wide open to the sea. Candlelight glowed at night. A private chef made lobster curry and ginger glazed snapper. Julian posted it all. Honeymoon mode activated. My goddess. My wife. But the first crack came on the second night. His phone, once casually tossed on nightstands, now never left his hand. It buzzed. He glanced, silenced it, smiled nervously. She noticed. Then came the late-night pacing. Whispered calls. Vague answers. Cassandra, intuitive by nature, asked no questions. Not yet, but she journaled again. Something is off. I don't know what, but I can feel it. Like the calm before a storm pretending to be still. Then came the iPad. On the 5th morning, Cassandra borrowed it to order breakfast. The device pinged. A message appeared, bold and accusing. Tasha Lyles. You said you'd call today. Stop ignoring me. You just married her. But you said it changes nothing. Her hand froze. Another message. The baby needs diapers. I had to borrow money. You promised you'd take care of us. The ocean kept moving outside the window. Another message. Voice notes. Photos. Cassandra's world tilted. Everything, the flowers, the helicopter, the vows, felt like scenes from a movie written for someone else. She didn't scream. She didn't throw the iPad. She just stared. Then she began scrolling. And when she reached the baby's photo, 8 months old, hazel eyes, Julian's mouth, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't sleep that night. Julian came in late, kissed her cheek, said something about Tokyo investors. She rolled away from him, eyes open, heart closing. But she didn't confront him. Not yet, because when the person who shattered your world sleeps beside you, the silence becomes strategy. The next morning, while he was still snoring, she stepped onto the veranda, robe cinched tight, and called the number she had saved. Tasha answered, and the first words she said were, "So it's true. He married you." Cassandra's hand trembled. "How long have you been together?" 2 years. My daughter is 8 months. He told me he loved me the day before your wedding. Outside, the sea remained still. Too still. Inside Cassandra, something cracked. Not her heart. Something deeper. A corner of her soul. And it wouldn't stay quiet for long. The truth doesn't always explode. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And in Cassandra Blake's case, it boiled. After that call with Tasha, Cassandra didn't scream. She didn't throw the iPad. She didn't even cry. She just sat, still, like a lake before a storm. Julian stirred in bed, mumbling something in his sleep about an email. His body turned toward her side, hand reaching out. But the sheets were cold. She was on the balcony, robe tied tight around her, skin pale in the orange wash of sunrise. Her tea had gone cold. The birds had stopped singing. And she was no longer a bride. She was something else now. Inside her, the betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was anatomical, cellular, like her blood had thickened with anger, like her lungs no longer expanded without pain. How many lies had he told her? How many smiles had been disguises? She reread Tasha's last message. He told me you were just for business. Power move. That he'd fix things after the wedding. And Cassandra remembered every time Julian had asked her to stay off socials for a bit. Every let me handle it when she asked about public appearances. Every don't worry about that babe when questions lingered, she had ignored them, because love makes fools of even the most careful women. That day, Julian returned from one of his long business walks. His shirt damp with sweat, his cologne overwhelmed by salt and heat. He kissed her like nothing was wrong, sat beside her on the villa's couch, pulled up Zillow listings on his phone. "We could flip a property in Portland next," he said casually. 3-bed villa, solar-powered, private dock. Imagine turning that into a wellness retreat. Glow Haven goes coastal. She nodded, smiled faintly, but her eyes were locked on his screen. The same phone he had used to text Tasha just 2 days earlier. Inside, she felt like a hollow drum, full of silence, but echoing rage. That night she called Lena. Her older sister was always her anchor, her big lioness. The call was short. "I need you to do something," Cassandra said. "Anything," Lena replied without hesitation. "I'm sending you screenshots. Keep them safe, just in case something happens." Pause. "What do you mean, in case something happens?" "Just trust me." Click. The next morning, Cassandra did something she hadn't done since they arrived. She dressed with intention. Not for Julian. For herself. Crimson bikini. The one he said made her look like royalty. Sheer black cover-up. Sunglasses dark enough to hide everything. Tears, calculation, fury. Julian was humming in the bathroom, trimming his beard. She watched him through the mirror. He didn't look like a killer. But then again, neither would she. He came out, winked. "Let's go hit the beach. Just you and me. No phones. No distractions." She almost laughed at the irony. The sun was high, painting the sand with gold. The beach at Rock House was almost empty. Just a few lounging guests and a bartender folding napkins into swans. They laid out towels. Julian poured them drinks. Red Stripe for him. Pineapple rum cooler for her. Cassandra sipped, then spoke. "Julian." He turned, mid-sip. "Yeah. Who is Tasha?" A silence fell so thick, even the wind stopped moving. His face dropped, then shifted, confusion, fear, then the corporate smile he wore during negotiations. "I don't know what you mean." She stayed quiet. "I read the messages. The iPad synced with your phone. I saw everything." He paled. "Cass, babe, it's not what you think. I was going to tell you. When? Before or after I found out you had a child with her?" He looked away. "I didn't even want the baby," he muttered. "She kept it to trap me." Cassandra's voice was steel. "No, you trapped yourself. You built this fantasy around me while living a second life. Don't act like you're perfect," he snapped. "You were always so busy with your business, with your image. I needed someone who actually cared about me." She blinked. "And that's why you made me your wife? To complete your image." He took a step forward. "I gave up a lot for you." "You didn't give up anything," she whispered. "You just multiplied your lies." He looked at her then, not with guilt, but with fury. "You were never supposed to find out." That sentence was a trigger, the final nail. The glass bottle she picked up didn't feel like a weapon. Until it was. The sand was red now. Julian wasn't moving. The beach had turned into a crime scene. Cassandra's hands were shaking, not from fear, but from release. The screaming guests, the camera phones, the blood on her cover-up. It all felt distant, like a movie she was watching from outside her body. Julian's eyes were open, but empty. His chest wasn't rising, and still she wasn't crying. Within minutes, the police arrived. Blue uniforms, flashing sirens, a cordon around the scene. A stern woman stepped forward. "Cassandra Blake?" "Yes. I'm Detective Sergeant Annalise Rowe. You're under arrest for the suspected murder of your husband, Julian Cross." Cassandra turned, held out her wrists. Click. No resistance. No tears. Just silence. Back at the station, Cassandra sat alone. Concrete walls. Buzzing overhead light. A fan clicking slowly. Sergeant Rowe entered. Sat across from her. Hit record. "This interview is being conducted on July 16th. Subject: Cassandra Blake. Charge: Murder. Rose's voice was calm, professional, but her eyes searched Cassandra like a surgeon looking for disease. Tell me what happened. Cassandra exhaled. He lied. About everything. And for the first time, she told someone the whole story. From the beach party, to the proposal, to the betrayal, to the baby. She laid it all bare. Rose leaned forward. Did you plan to kill him? Pause. No. I planned to confront him. That's all. Was it spontaneous? Another pause. Longer. Cassandra stared at the table, then whispered, No. It was a choice. Rose studied her for a moment, then stood. By sunrise, the story was global. Bride butchers husband on honeymoon. From vows to violence. The Cassandra Blake nightmare. Beach wedding ends in bloodbath. Every news outlet, from Jamaica Gleaner to BBC, ran with it. Her face was everywhere. Once radiant and glowing, now smeared with blood, mascara trailing like war paint. Tasha Lyles gave no public statement, but Lena did. She was happy. She was in love, she told reporters outside the station. That's all I know. In prison, Cassandra didn't cry. She taught yoga in the yard. She led journaling workshops. She ignored reporters, refused interviews. But then, a letter came. No return address. Inside a photo. Julian, Tasha, the baby, all smiling. On the back, in looping script, You were never the only one. Cassandra stared at it. Then slowly, she smiled. But it wasn't a smile of peace. It was something else. And in that moment, Cassandra made a new decision. A new kind of truth. A deeper reckoning. Because her story wasn't over yet. The trial hadn't even begun. Montego Bay Supreme Court. A building older than memory, dressed in columns and dust. On most days, it tried to feel noble. But today, it just felt hungry. Hungry for spectacle. The courtroom was packed. A crush of media, locals, tourists, lawyers, activists. They had come to witness the fall or rise of Cassandra Blake. She stood in the defendant's box, unshackled, dressed in a beige pantsuit issued by the Women's Detention Center. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her face held no makeup, no smile, no apology. Just stillness. Tasha Lyles sat in the back, sunglasses on, flanked by two unknown women. She didn't flinch when Cassandra entered. The judge, Justice Everett Monroe, cleared his throat. Old, stern, silver-rimmed glasses low on his nose. He had presided over corruption trials, cartel cases, political scandals. But this case, this was different. This was personal. He looked out over the room and spoke. This court is now in session. The prosecution wasted no time. Lead prosecutor Dane Wallace was ruthless, elegant, and theatrical. A man who relished high-profile cases the way a lion relishes a challenge. He walked to the center of the courtroom and faced the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. This is not the story of a woman betrayed. This is the story of a woman obsessed with control, who, when faced with rejection, chose blood over dignity. He painted Cassandra as methodical, calculating. She didn't snap. She schemed. He played the voice note she sent her sister Lena the night before the murder. If he doesn't confess, I'll drag the truth out of him myself. Gasps. Murmurs. He projected screenshots of Cassandra's texts to Tasha. Photos of the crime scene. The bloody rum bottle, labeled Exhibit D. Then he played a shaky smartphone video recorded by a tourist from the beach. Cassandra swinging. Julian screaming. The crowd shouting. Look at her, he said. That's not heartbreak. That's execution. Then it was the defense's turn. Marissa Doyle. Calm. Soft-spoken. Deadly. She didn't pace. She stood in one spot, both hands on the podium. What does it take to break a woman like Cassandra Blake? She asked the jury. She was successful, respected, cautious. She didn't chase love, she built it. And when it all turned to ash, when the truth came out, she didn't kill a man. She collapsed. She didn't argue innocence. She argued why. This case isn't about murder. It's about momentum. Emotional momentum that began the moment Julian Cross first told a lie. She revealed Cassandra's journals, her therapy notes, introduced childhood records, a history of abandonment, father's infidelity, a mother who once said, "Don't ever love a man more than your mirror." She paused, letting silence do the bleeding. And yet, she did. Tasha Lyles was called to the stand. She walked slowly, deliberately, wore a neutral-tone dress, her braids tied back, baby not present. Wallace questioned her first. "Did you and Julian Cross have a relationship?" "Yes." "Did he ever speak to you about Cassandra Blake?" "Yes." He said she was good for his brand, that she made him look successful. Murmurs again. The judge banged his gavel. "And the child?" "He said he didn't want her at first, but later he changed. He sent money, spent time, promised things." "Did you know he was getting married?" "I found out the day of, through Instagram. And after, he blocked me." Marissa Doyle stood next. "Did you love him?" Tasha's voice broke slightly. "Yes, stupidly." "Did he love you?" Another pause. "I think he loved the idea of me, same way he loved the idea of her." Cassandra didn't react. Not when Tasha left the stand. Not when the evidence photos were passed around. Not even when the jury flinched at a close-up of Julian's bloodied face. Then, it was Cassandra's turn. Marissa gave her a slight nod. She walked to the witness box, swore herself in. Saturday, crossed her ankles, back straight. Her voice, when it came, was low, controlled, almost too calm. "I didn't plan to kill Julian," she began. "I planned to ask for the truth. I wanted to believe there was still something in him worth saving." She told the court about their first meeting, the romance, the manipulation, the baby, the iPad. She described how betrayal felt in the body, like drowning, but you're still breathing, and no one sees the flood. Wallace stood for Cross. "You're a businesswoman, Ms. Blake. You understand decisions, strategy, execution. Tell me, how does one go from sipping rum to bludgeoning a man to death without calculation?" Cassandra met his eyes. "I was tired of being polite." Silence. "I begged him to tell me the truth." He laughed. "I watched the man I gave everything to become a stranger. And in that moment, I lost who I was. I didn't kill Julian Cross. I ended the lie he built." More silence. "Do I regret it?" she continued. She looked at the jury. "I regret trusting him. I regret giving up parts of myself for his dreams. But on that beach, no, I didn't regret it. I finally breathed." The jury deliberated for 3 days. During that time, the world outside spun wildly. Social media was ablaze. Hashtag Cassandra was set up. Hashtag Justice for Julian. Hashtag The Blood Bride. Hashtag Broken Not Bad. Influencers weighed in. Psychologists debated trauma thresholds. Feminist groups rallied outside the courthouse. One even brought signs reading, "Betrayal is violence too." And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, Cassandra waited, in silence. On the third day, the court reconvened. Cassandra was led in, hair slightly looser, hands folded. Justice Monroe scanned the room. "Mr. Foreman," he said, "has the jury reached a verdict?" The man, a balding insurance broker from St. Elizabeth, stood. "We have, Your Honor." He unfolded the paper, cleared his throat. "We, the jury, find the defendant." A phone buzzed. Someone in the gallery coughed. "Guilty of manslaughter, not murder," gasped. Tasha's head dropped. Marissa exhaled. Cassandra blinked once. Justice Monroe nodded gravely. In consideration of the facts presented, and the psychological profile submitted by the defense, this court sentences Cassandra Blake to 10 years imprisonment. The gavel struck, and just like that, it was over, or so it seemed, because something was waiting, not in the courtroom, not in the tabloids, but in a sealed brown envelope placed on the judge's desk, anonymously. Inside it was a USB drive, and what it contained would shake everything again. Justice Everett Monroe wasn't the kind of man who startled easily. But the envelope stopped him cold. It was thick, brown, unmarked. No stamp, no sender. Delivered by hand, sometime during jury deliberation. No one saw who left it. No one questioned it until after the verdict was read. It sat on his desk now, unassuming, almost harmless. Inside was a USB drive, labeled in bold black marker. For your eyes only, cross. He inserted it into his chamber's secure laptop. The file autoplayed, static, then a grainy video, low lighting, a woman's voice, Tasha Lyles. She wasn't speaking to the camera. She was arguing with Julian. It was filmed secretly like a phone tucked into a purse. "I'm not a secret anymore, Julian," she hissed. "You knew what this was," he replied, voice sharp. "You were never supposed to get attached. I'm raising your child. You swore, and I handled it. Stop acting like I owe you a damn crown. Cassandra is the public image. You were the investment." The screen shook as if the person holding the phone flinched. Then Julian looked directly into the lens. Eyes narrowed, suddenly alert. "You recording me?" Static. Cut. The file ended. Monroe sat back. Eyes narrowed. Jaw locked. The next morning, he summoned Sergeant Annalise Rowe to his chambers. "This wasn't entered into evidence," he said, sliding the USB toward her. Rowe plugged it in, watched the clip. Her face didn't move. But when it ended, she said, "This could be motive." "No," Monroe said. "This could be murder." Meanwhile, Cassandra was settling into life inside the women's correctional facility, just outside Montego Bay. Her cell was small but neat. 2 bunk beds. 1 rusted fan. A single window high on the wall. Her cellmate, Doreen, mid-40s, convicted of fraud and tax evasion, had a soft spot for Bible verses and cigarettes. 10 years go fast if you make them count, she told Cassandra one night, braiding her own hair in the dim light. "I don't want them to go fast," Cassandra replied. "I want them to mean something." She spent mornings teaching yoga, afternoons helping women draft letters to estranged children, evenings alone journaling in a worn notebook. But something lingered, a shadow she couldn't name. And then one day the guards called her name. Visitor. Lawyer. Marissa Doyle was already seated in the small interview room. She looked pale, serious, tired. Cassandra sat down. "What's wrong?" Marissa slid a photo across the table. A screenshot from the video. Julian's face. Mid-sentence. Mid-lie. Where did this come from? An anonymous tip, given directly to the judge. They're reopening parts of the investigation. Cassandra blinked. "So, what does that mean?" Marissa leaned in. "It means the court's considering post-conviction evidence. If they find it credible, your sentence could be reduced. Overturned even." Hope, cautious, bitter hope, lit a match inside her. "But there's more," Marissa said. "Sergeant Rowe wants to talk to you again. Off the record." That night, Rowe met Cassandra in the prison's interview room. No cameras. No recorder. Just a quiet buzz overhead. "I've seen a lot of lies," Rowe said, arms crossed. "But Julian Cross? He built his from the bones up." She laid out new findings. Julian had been under quiet investigation by the Financial Crimes Division. Money laundering, offshore accounts, fraud. He wasn't just a real estate broker. He was a fixer, a manipulator, a man who knew how to smile and steal in the same breath. "But why didn't any of this come out before?" Cassandra asked. "Because the people he worked with didn't want their names dragged into a scandal," Rowe replied. "But now he's dead, and you're not just a wife who cracked. You might be a survivor of something much bigger." Cassandra stared at her, then said, "Tasha knew." Rowe nodded. Maybe more than she said on the stand. The next morning, headlines exploded again. New evidence emerges in Cassandra Blake case. Secret recording paints Julian Cross as master manipulator. Was Cassandra Blake set up to break? Public opinion shifted like tidewater. Where once there was judgment, now there was curiosity, sympathy, doubt. People began asking, was this really a simple case of a woman betrayed? Or was Cassandra Blake the last person standing in a long game of deception? Lena, Cassandra's sister, gave a public statement outside the courthouse. She trusted him. She gave him everything. And what did she get? Betrayed. Publicly humiliated. Used as a pawn. And then came the second envelope. This one addressed to Marissa Doyle. Inside were wire transfer logs. More screenshots. Photos Julian with other women. Messages about keeping Cassandra in check. Even notes suggesting he had been surveilling her phone and email long before the wedding. All anonymously submitted. Who was sending them? Tasha? A former associate? Someone else who wanted Julian exposed? No one knew. But with every file, Cassandra's story shifted from villain to victim. Back inside, Cassandra sat on her bunk, rereading one of the notes Julian had written to her during their engagement. I want to build an empire with you. Trust me. You're the only one who understands what I'm building. Now, that sentence felt like a trap disguised as romance. A week later, Ro returned. We've got one more problem, she said. What now? The bank Julian used for laundering? Their files were hacked. Someone leaked everything. Offshore accounts. Fake shell companies. Even a few bribes to local officials. Cassandra's eyes widened. Are you saying he was part of something organized? Ro nodded. And you? You were his cover. His PR. His stability. Silence stretched between them. Then Ro added, we're calling in Tasha. Again. Tasha Lyles walked into the station wearing dark glasses, a gray hoodie, and zero makeup. She looked nothing like the composed woman from the trial. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. Ro slid the USB across the table. I assume you recognize this? Tasha stared at the screen as the footage played. She didn't flinch. She didn't deny. Instead, she said, I was going to go public. I filmed it for insurance. Why send it now? Tasha hesitated. Because I didn't want her to rot for something we both helped break. Ro frowned. What do you mean? Tasha looked down. I knew he was marrying her. I didn't stop him. I thought he'd leave eventually. But I also knew if anyone found out about the baby, about us, his empire would collapse. So I let him lie, and lie, until she snapped. Ro leaned forward. You let it burn. Tasha nodded. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't kill him, but I lit the match. The DA's office scheduled a formal review. Cassandra would be escorted under guard, back into court, not as a defendant but as a witness in her own rebirth. But just before the hearing, another envelope arrived. This one with a black feather inside, and a threatening note. It was supposed to be a legal review hearing. A formality. A scheduled, contained, sanitized process. Instead, it became a security risk. The black feather inside the envelope wasn't just a symbol. It was a threat. A warning wrapped in folklore. In Jamaica, black feathers are sometimes associated with duppy, spirits of the dead who haven't let go. And in Cassandra Blake's case, it was a promise. If you speak, you disappear. The note attached was handwritten in all caps. Stay quiet. Some lies die with the man. If you open your mouth, you'll join him. Ro didn't panic, but she tightened security around Cassandra immediately. New guards, new routes, limited access. Still, fear had returned. Not the kind that screams, the kind that waits. 3 days before the hearing, Cassandra sat across from Marissa Doyle in the prison conference room. Between them was a slim folder containing everything. Screenshots, transfers, the leaked audio, the anonymous documents, the threat. Cassandra stared at the feather. They want me afraid, she said. Marissa nodded. And are you? Cassandra didn't answer at first. Then, I'm tired, but fear doesn't get to win. The day of the hearing, the Montego Bay courtroom was under tight surveillance. Uniformed officers patrolled the perimeter. Undercover agents blended with the crowd. Snipers were stationed on nearby rooftops. Unconfirmed, but whispered. Inside, the energy had shifted. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was tension. Everyone knew this wasn't just about Cassandra Blake. It was about who Julian Cross really was, and who wanted him erased from memory. Cassandra walked in, her beige suit crisp, her eyes hollow but fierce. She didn't scan the room. She didn't wave to Lena. She didn't acknowledge Tasha, who sat 3 rows back, sunglasses on, hands trembling slightly. Judge Monroe entered and called the session to order. "This hearing," he said, "has been requested to reevaluate post-conviction evidence submitted after the trial of Cassandra Blake. The scope includes potential coercion, undisclosed criminal networks, and suppression of motive-altering data." Translation: if what they uncovered was true, Cassandra could walk free. The prosecution, visibly uncomfortable, argued for caution. The victim, Julian Cross, cannot defend himself. We must weigh carefully the validity and intent behind this new evidence. But Roe wasn't interested in careful. She was interested in truth. She took the stand and laid it all out. The leaked audio of Julian belittling Tasha. The financial records connecting Julian to shell corporations. The bank hacks. The timeline that suggested Cassandra had been gaslit, surveilled, and emotionally manipulated for over a year. Then came the final piece. Marissa Doyle stepped forward. "I'd like to submit Exhibit H, a signed affidavit from Tasha Lyles." A ripple shot through the room. The affidavit was 2 pages long, handwritten, notarized, shaking but sincere. In it, Tasha admitted that she knew about the marriage, that she enabled the deception, that Julian had lied to both women, that she had secretly filmed him to protect herself in case he ever turned violent. But most importantly, "I believe Cassandra Blake did not set out to kill Julian Cross. I believe she was mentally and emotionally cornered, and I believe I played a role in the events that led to his death." The room was silent. Then Judge Monroe leaned forward. "Ms. Lyles," he said, "you're present. Do you stand by this statement?" Tasha rose, pulled off her sunglasses. "I do." Her eyes were swollen. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. Outside, news spread like fire on dry leaves. Cassandra Blake hearing erupts with new confessions. Tasha Lyles testifies again, reveals her role in cover-up. Is Cassandra Blake innocent? Or just the last to break? But for every headline of support, there were 2 more filled with suspicion. And beneath it all, danger lingered. Because Julian Cross didn't just work alone. He had partners, investors, friends in high places, and someone didn't want Cassandra to talk again. That night, back in prison, Cassandra's cell was moved again, closer to the guard station, reinforced locks. Still, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing a sound. Not loud, not sharp, a soft scraping. Under her bunk, she crouched, heart thudding, and pulled back the thin mattress. Nothing. But then she saw it, scratched into the metal frame, with a fingernail or spoon or maybe a coin. "They watch you, even here." Her stomach turned. Who had written it? Who had known before her? The next morning, Roe returned. She looked pale, worn. "We got a hit on the envelope DNA." Cassandra's eyes widened. "You know who sent the feather?" Roe nodded. "It's complicated. The envelope was touched by multiple people, but one fingerprint matched." "Whose?" Roe hesitated. "Tasha's ex-boyfriend, a man named Kian Isaacs. He has priors: fraud, extortion, suspected arson. He went underground 3 years ago. We didn't know he was back." Cassandra blinked. "So, he's threatening me?" Roe sighed. "Or he's being used to." That evening, Tasha was taken into protective custody. She had no idea how Kian was involved. Claimed she hadn't spoken to him since 2022. "I don't even know where he is," she said. "He used to follow me, show up at the baby's daycare. I filed a report once. Julian said he'd handle it." Roe frowned. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. The pieces no longer fit neatly. They were messy, colliding, dangerous. Julian Cross was dead, but his reach wasn't. And as Cassandra prepared for what could be her final hearing, she knew something had changed. This wasn't about vindication anymore. It was survival. The night before the hearing, A fire broke out in the record office downtown. Files burned. CCTV was mysteriously offline. And among the ashes was a folder labeled Blake, Cassandra, Case Materials. A security guard reported seeing two men in black hoodies fleeing the scene. The footage never recovered, but a partial license plate was traced to a rental, booked under the name Kian Isaacs. The next morning, Roe showed Cassandra the report. "They're trying to wipe your story," she said. Cassandra didn't flinch. "Then I'll rewrite it." And as she stood in her holding cell, waiting to be escorted into the courtroom one last time, she whispered a prayer she hadn't said since childhood. "God, if I walk out of here, let it be with nothing fake left in me." But outside, in the back of a nondescript black SUV, a man with a scar under his left eye picked up his phone and spoke one line. "If she talks again, we end it." The courtroom was quiet. Too quiet. Cassandra Blake stood at the threshold, flanked by two guards. Her suit, though the same pale beige as before, somehow felt more like armor today. Her hair was pulled back, but loose strands framed her face. A face no longer haunted, just resolved. This wasn't the face of a victim, or even a criminal. It was the face of a woman who had seen the belly of betrayal and survived it. Judge Everett Monroe sat above the courtroom, looking wearier than ever. A week ago, he had sentenced this woman to 10 years in prison. Today, he was being asked to review whether the justice system itself had failed her. The gallery was tense. Lena sat near the front, fingers clenched. Tasha, in protective custody, watched remotely. Sergeant Rowe was stone-faced. Marissa Doyle stood beside Cassandra, folder in hand, gaze steely. The judge tapped his gavel. "We are here to present the final arguments in the review of Cassandra Blake's conviction," he announced. "New evidence, new testimony, and a case that has clearly evolved beyond our initial understanding." He looked at Cassandra. "Ms. Blake, this is your last chance to address this court." Cassandra stepped forward, cleared her throat, and began. "I was raised to believe that silence was strength," she said. "That when you're hurt, you keep it inside. You smile. You keep going." She paused. The room held its breath. "But silence can also be a cage." She told them everything again, this time with no hesitation. How Julian swept her into a dream. How he played both sides. How he used her name, her peace, her love, as a shield for darker dealings. How betrayal didn't come in a burst. It came like water under a floorboard. Quiet, persistent, until everything rotted from the inside out. "I didn't kill Julian because he cheated," she said. "I killed him because the life he offered me was built on a lie. A lie he would have kept feeding until I drowned in it." The courtroom was frozen. "And I would have accepted my sentence," she added, voice stronger now, "if that had been the end of it. But it wasn't." She listed what came next. The video footage, the offshore accounts, the threats, the attempt to erase her existence with fire. She turned to the judge. "I don't want pity. I don't want applause. I want to walk out of here whole." And then, she stopped talking. No dramatics. No final flourish. Just silence. The kind that speaks louder than any scream. Marissa presented her final documents. Rowe added closing statements about Julian's financial crimes and the danger Cassandra had unknowingly stepped into. The prosecutor, looking as though the ground had shifted beneath him, declined to rebut. The judge nodded and called a recess. In the back room, Cassandra sat in silence. Lena came to her. "I don't care what happens today," she said, voice shaking. "You're still my sister, my lioness." Cassandra finally broke. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't sob. She just nodded. "Thank you for never leaving." An hour later, the courtroom reconvened. Judge Monroe looked out over the crowd. "This case," he said, "has tested the boundaries of what justice means. The lines between victim and perpetrator, deception and survival, impulse and intention." He took off his glasses, folded his hands. After full review of the new evidence, this court finds that the original conviction of Cassandra Blake no longer aligns with the truth now presented. A pause. We hereby vacate the sentence of manslaughter. Another pause. Cassandra Blake. You are free to go. Gasps, cries. The gavel fell, and Cassandra's shoulders dropped for the first time in months. Outside, the world waited. Reporters, cameras, microphones shoved forward. But Cassandra didn't stop. She stepped through the courthouse doors with Lena beside her, Marissa trailing behind, Roe watching from the edge of the crowd. A reporter shouted, "Ms. Blake, do you feel vindicated?" Another, "Will you sue the government? Will you write a book?" Cassandra stopped only once. A young woman in the crowd, barely 20, reached forward and whispered, "You're the reason I left him." "Thank you." Cassandra nodded, then kept walking. In the weeks that followed, her name became legend. Think pieces flooded the internet. The bride who refused to stay silent. Gaslight to the edge. The Cassandra Blake case. Was it self-defense? Or slow-motion revenge? A major podcast offered her a 6-episode deal. A documentary team reached out. Netflix called. She declined them all. Instead, she went home. To Spanish Town. To her grandmother's old house, now covered in vines and memories. She spent mornings rebuilding the garden. Afternoons rereading the journals she'd written in prison. She didn't dye her silver streaks. Didn't wear makeup. Didn't answer every message. But slowly, deliberately, she started something new. She founded a nonprofit called Glass House, a sanctuary for women recovering from psychological abuse and emotional trauma. Workshops, journaling, legal aid, healing retreats. When asked about the name, she told a small local radio host, "Because people love to throw stones. But some of us learn to build homes with the pieces." Julian's former associates never resurfaced. Kian Isaacs disappeared again. Last seen on a blurry security cam at the airport in Panama City. The Jamaican police issued a warrant. Interpol flagged his name, but he was never caught. As for Tasha, she changed her name, moved to St. Lucia, works quietly as a teacher's aide at a small preschool. The child, now almost 3, has no memory of his father. Just stories, and a quiet lullaby Tasha hums when she thinks no one is listening. Detective Rowe took early retirement, moved to Portland, opened a bookshop, named it Rowe and Silence. When asked what made her walk away, she simply said, "Some truths, once unearthed, demand a quieter life." 10 months later, Cassandra received one final envelope. This time, no threat, just a photo. A beach, empty. A single red bottle cap buried in the sand. On the back, "You survived the storm. Now build the lighthouse." No name, no sender. But she knew. And this time, she smiled. Cassandra Blake never gave a TED Talk. Never wrote a memoir. But if you drive along the coast of Negril today, you might see a small stone building nestled among the cliffs. It doesn't have a sign, just a bronze plaque near the door. Carved into it are 5 simple words. Some scars deserve the sun. And if you knock, sometimes she answers. With silence. And then, a story. Because while some betrayals end in blood, the worst ones end in transformation.